Good morning. Welcome to the Council meeting of the Town of Qualicum Beach. We acknowledge that we're having this meeting on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Qualicum First Nation. First, we do with the agenda, and we have a late item, and that's regarding hazard tree assessment in the Heritage Forest, and that's under late item number 9 in your agenda 1D. So that will come up as we go through. Any other changes to the agenda? Then the agenda is adopted by consent. Adoption of the consent agenda. Is there anything that Council wishes to discuss? Councillor Skipsey.
Yeah, I just note that the October 22nd minutes have already been approved as presented, so I don't think they need to be included in this. And I did have a number of changes that will be made to the minutes, just minor changes.
Thank you. And the consent agenda is also adopted by consent. Friends of the Qualicum Beach Forest, Mr. Monahan. You have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm actually not here to ask for anything today. Isn't that unusual? But I wanted to talk to you about a project that was started in the year 2000 called the Significant Trees of Qualicum Beach. It was a Communities in Bloom project in the year 2000, and a book was created. That's the cover page of the book, and that's the French Creek red cedar, the giant red cedar at French Creek. There were 72 significant trees identified throughout Qualicum Beach. And it was displayed here in Town Hall in a carved case, and then earlier in 2025, it was transferred to the Qualicum Beach Museum. They made a copy, and it's on display at the Qualicum Beach Museum. Next slide. Oh, I can do that. Look at that, isn't that lovely? And that's the box, a carved box that it was stored in and displayed here. From the introduction of the book, it describes why it was established, when it was established, and documenting significant trees in Qualicum Beach. And it was a Communities in Bloom project, and a committee was established. The committee consisted of these people here, listed below, of which Marlis Diamond is present at the back of the room today. So my intention is simply to bring you up to date on the status of the subject of these trees. In addition, while we were going around Qualicum Beach looking for various trees and identifying them and seeing, are they still there, are they not there, what condition are they in, etc. We also decided to take a look at the trees that are listed in Bylaw 559.02, which is a tree protection bylaw that specifies 19 protected trees within Qualicum Beach. Of those 19 trees, most of which were native trees, you can see there are a couple that have simply broken off and left big stumps, and 3 that appear to have been cut down and removed for various reasons. So the Significant Trees of Qualicum Beach book is at the museum. This is the display, and a lot of work went into this, and a lot of work went into our job this year, which was just to visit these trees and update them and see what the status is 25 years later. So here's the Significant Trees of Qualicum Beach 2025 project, and that was a project of the Friends of the Forest of Qualicum Beach. And a couple of the people in this photograph are here today, Pat Jacobson and Charna McPhee. We've now reviewed each entry in the Significant Trees book, and we've identified which trees are missing, which trees are still here, a little bit of information about each one, photographs, and latitude and longitude. Unfortunately, the descriptions of locations of some of these trees in the original book said simply the 14th fairway of Eagle Crest Golf Course, for instance. And those fairway numbers have changed, so it took a little digging to find out these trees. But eventually we have found them all, with a couple of exceptions. Each entry has the latitude and longitude and photographs, and it's now available in an online spreadsheet. Here, you can, the click here is for anybody that's actually got this on their computer, not quite yet, and or you can visit the spreadsheet by going to our website, qbtrees.org/downloads, and then following the link from there. Or there's a QR code, if you're using a phone, that'll take you directly there. Of the 70 trees listed in the 2000 publication, up to 25 are no longer present. What's next? Well, we don't have a specific plan, but what we think we would like to do is to continue this work, identify, I'm sure there are new significant trees in Qualicum Beach since 25 years ago, and to continue this work. So, but as I said, we're not asking for anything from council right now. There's discussion about making our project so far an entry for Communities in Bloom or associated with the Communities in Bloom project for 2026. And a possible future project could include, et cetera. If we can just step back and click on the link there, this is what the spreadsheet looks like. There we go. And you can see that we have...
Mr. Monahan, you need to wrap up your presentation.
Yep, I will in just one moment. So you can click on links for the photographs from the original book or photographs from this year. If you just click on one there, and you can see it takes you to there.
Thank you.
Photographs. So just wanted to introduce you to our project and introduce the community to this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions to the delegation? Seeing none, the next delegation is from Palm Drive residents. Mr. Patterson.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Oh, sorry, looking for the clicker. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Third time's a charm. My name is Colin Lloyd. I'm a resident of Palm Drive and have been asked to speak on behalf of friends and neighbours whose homes back onto our cherished heritage forest. And this person here is Jeannie Patterson, who will be assisting me. Before we begin, I would sincerely like to thank Council for your vision and leadership in making Qualicum Beach the most desirable place in Canada to live, in our opinion at least. But nothing in life is perfect, and that is why we are here today. We believe the trees along the heritage forest boundary behind our homes on Palm Drive may pose a serious safety risk. Some are distressed, some are structurally unstable, and several could fall on property, private property, without warning. Now, we accept that living next to a forest carries some risk. However, we are concerned that the town is not fulfilling its duty of care to address trees as identified as posing a threat to public safety within a reasonable time frame. Now, Council has received a comprehensive report authored by Jeannie Patterson that contains many references to applicable case law. The anxiety this has caused residents could have been eased through open, even-handed, timely communication by the town. On July 24th, a large tree limb fell on Susan Lee's home, who is here with us today, causing at 394 Palm Drive, causing extensive damage and much distress. That raised an urgent question for the town and the residents: which tree and whose property would be next? We had intended to come here to ask Council to instruct staff to urgently complete level 2 and 3 hazard assessments for all trees behind 360 to 406 Palm Drive and to remove any that meet the town's hazardous tree criteria. This is because we were advised that beyond addressing the infected trees behind number 400, the town's response was limited to the arborist conducting 2 separate level 1 inspections, which are cursory in nature, behind 360 to 406. He concluded that there was no further action required. Now, we believe firmly that this was inadequate and would not fulfill the town's obligations to residents once a hazard was known or reasonably known to exist. However, at the 11th hour, we received a document from the town's CAO yesterday afternoon. Ms. Varela's document summarizes the sequence of events from the town's perspective, concluding with entirely new information that on December the 5th, the town arborist met with Tom Whitfield, president of the Brown Property Preservation Society, on an apparent agreement to begin level 2 assessment of the entire area, a process she advises that will be completed between the 8th and the 12th, so therefore it's underway as we speak. Now, with this information, Council may consider that my presentation is moot. We've surely got what we've asked for and we can all go home happy. But I'm afraid it raises more questions than it answers. Firstly, the town's arborist responded to the tree that fell on Susan's property on the 24th of July. He overlooked the fact that there was a nearby tree that was fruiting with fungi until a third-party contractor pointed it out to him. This highly infectious pathogen weakens the tree's stability and through root rot, and predictably neighbouring trees in the immediate area were found to be infected and a level 3 assessment was ordered. Despite the discovery of fungal fruiting, we want to know why the arborist's action was restricted only to behind number 400. Secondly, why did it take the town almost 50 days to remove an infected and dangerously leaning Douglas fir behind number 400, when its own bylaw requires this to be done within 10 days? Meanwhile, it took the town almost 100 days to remove the other infected trees. Thirdly, why has the town arborist changed his mind since he carried out the level 1 assessments? What has changed? Are we more at risk? Or is it the growing body of evidence that was provided by residents? We believe the matter should have been managed far more effectively. And we also want to know why, when the town had known for months that residents were feeling unsafe in their homes, didn't they communicate this change in direction? This would have done much to alleviate anxiety, and we might not have needed to engage the ombudsperson as we have. And finally, this whole process has lacked urgency, given that the window for action...
Mr. Would you wrap?
Thank you. Given that the window for action effectively closes...
Wait a minute. It's hard for council and me as chair to hear staff being criticized when they can't respond, when not having a dialogue that way. Our senior CEO will actually respond later on in the meeting to your concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would point out, I am a retired civil servant. I've served the public for 40 years, so it's hard for me to make these comments. I don't make them lightly, sir. So as you can see and hear, and thank you for making that point, Mr. Mayor, this has not been a very good experience back and forth. It has eroded a certain level of trust and confidence.
See that red light? That means you're done.
Thank you. So thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome, but there may be some questions. Councillor Harrison.
I just want to point out, too, that we all know that in the wintertime is when we have the most wind. You're going to have more storms in the wintertime. So whatever we're going to do, we should probably be doing it quickly rather than finding out the hard way.
We'll discuss that when staff makes the presentation. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. And as you heard at the adoption of the agenda, later on, the staff will respond to some of your concerns. Okay. The next is the Town of Qualicum Beach Cemetery Bylaw, and this is to be for third reading. Could I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Harrison. Councillor Vander, discussion. Councillor Harrison.
So there was an email I think all of council received about a gentleman who had a very sad but very unique circumstance where they were predeceased by one of their children. And there's a bit of an issue with the remains that they want to be buried essentially with their child, but because the current policy, I'm just wondering if staff could comment, like, does the policy allow for that circumstance where, sorry, it was just a really unique comment, but I thought it was entirely fair for them to raise it.
Sure. Ms. Svensson.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Through to Councillor Harrison. I was just made aware of this morning by a different councillor, so I'd like some time to look at it. But on the surface, from what I understand, have not seen the email. A resident that does not reside within District 69, as per the bylaw, cannot be interred in the cemetery, and I believe that is the situation. So, but I would like to look into it further to give you a fulsome answer, not during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for
That's
raising
entirely
that, but Ms. Svensson will look into it.
And we're also not adopting it today, so it's just third reading.
That's
So
right.
if there's new information we need to make a change, we can do that at a later date.
So it is up for third reading. It's moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. And then the second part, where they have the miscellaneous rate bylaw. Can I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Vander, Valk, Councillor Young. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you. Zoning amendment bylaw 510 Chester Road. Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. While my slides are being pulled up, I'll just briefly introduce this. We are here to discuss a zoning amendment application for a property at 510 Chester Road. This is a property that has been before a council and the Advisory Planning Commission on several occasions in the past. So we're at the stage now where council has given 2 readings to the zoning amendment bylaw, and under consideration today is third reading potentially, as well as some changes that have been made to the site plan. So as noted, this property is on Chester Road. It is a large residential property, larger than most of the adjacent, and the proposal is to add new dwellings around what exists as a single family dwelling here up on that'd be the northwest corner of the lot. So this house exists, and it is proposed to remain in the existing location. So the proposal, as council previously considered it, was that there would be a total of 9 residential lots, including this one here. So there was a public information meeting. The applicant presented the current proposal, received comments back from the neighbors, and council also considered those comments received from the neighbors. So the applicant has made some changes to respond to what they heard as areas of concern from the neighborhood. So the first major change is that there's no longer 9 proposed lots. It's now 8 proposed lots. So the existing plus these 7. Another area of concern expressed by the neighbors was that the previous proposal had a relatively small setback from Chester Road because it was going to be orienting here to this cul-de-sac. So the recommendation was made that this parcel could be enlarged so that it's more similar in scale to the adjacent properties, that the driveway would be from Chester Road and not from this internal cul-de-sac road, and that the minimum setback from Chester would be 8 meters as opposed to, I believe it was more 2 or 3 meters in the previous proposal. So those are the site changes that have been made by the applicant in response to public feedback. These are some perspective renderings of what the form and character of these dwellings would look like. Very clearly, the existing house is not going to necessarily look like this. That one is what it is, but the form and character would be substantially in line with what we're looking at here. So if council does want to advance with this and supports the changes that have been made by the applicant, there's a few motions that would be required to keep it moving forward. So the first is that the bylaw requires 4 readings. 2 have been given, so the next stage would be for council to give third reading to that zoning amendment bylaw. And then the other motions here relate to responses to the changes proposed by the applicant. So first of all, the applicant has stated that yes, the changes will be made so that the lot on the corner is more like not a part of the strata. It feels like something as a part of the neighborhood, so it's going to have the driveway access from Chester. So what they are proposing is that that one would no longer be a part of the strata, which makes sense because it would then have its services directly from Chester. It wouldn't have vehicular access or in any way be using those shared assets from the strata. So that would require council rescinding their previous motion that only excluded Lot 1. So the strata would then exclude Lot 1 and Lot 2. And then the third part here is that the form and character covenant that would have applied to Lot 2, so the new one facing Chester, is not really quite as applicable anymore because that had specific guidelines for things like driveway location or garage configuration, driveway location. So that one would have a unique form and character, which those form and character guidelines have not been finalized yet. They're still being considered. So it would be compatible with the strata units, but it would also have more similarities probably to the other existing house on the property. So those are the 4 recommendations before council today. If there are any questions, I'd be pleased to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Sales. Comments? Councillor Harrison.
I was just going to move third reading for a start.
Thank you.
Or should we do them as a block or maybe individually? I don't know how council feels.
You know, the way I feel, I think it's a block.
Okay, I'll move it as a block. I think this is a reasonable compromise.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Young. Discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. Yeah, we had sent a motion back, and I appreciate the applicant addressing, I think, all of the items that were listed on that, including the 8-meter setback. Although when I saw the slide there, I thought it said that it's a 6-meter, so I just would like some clarification around whether it's 6 or 8. Thank you.
Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. And there is a discrepancy between what's in the staff memo and what was on the slide up there. So when the first round of correspondence was received by staff after changes were made, it said that the setbacks would be comparable to the neighborhood. So most of the homes in the neighborhood were constructed when the setback was 8 meters. However, the zoning on all of those homes now says 6 meters. So from the perspective of the applicant, when they were saying similar to the neighborhood, they were saying similar to the zoning. So it is their intention to make it 6 meters and not 8.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And I just want to make sure, too, there was a previous motion about the Section 219 form and character, form and character covenant. And I just wanted to make sure that that would be registered so that what we're seeing is what we actually get for this subdivision.
Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. That form and character covenant will be registered as well as this separate form and character covenant. So council wouldn't consider adoption of the zoning amendment bylaw until the covenant was adopted or registered. Thank you.
Just one last one. And I think, as I said, the applicant has done a good job addressing the concerns. I think if we were to ask the neighborhood, they probably would have liked 4 instead of 6, but I think this is realistic. And one thing's come up through this, and that was now with rezonings about signage, and I had sent a message to Mr. Sales about this. So maybe we can just get some clarification about what is the expectation around the neighborhood being notified of rezonings now that the province has introduced this new legislation? Thank you.
Mr. Sales.
Thank you. The notification requirements and development review process has changed a lot since the province made those changes a few years ago. So the development application fees and procedures bylaw has not yet been updated to reflect that new procedure. So in answer to your question directly, a sign is still required because that's what the town's bylaw says. So the applicant did put up the sign yesterday, and it will be up. It's 6 weeks until the earliest possible consideration of adoption. So that's certainly a generous amount of time. I think what the more interesting discussion is the primary purpose of the signs in the past has been to let people know that there's going to be a public hearing. So I think the broader discussion is, considering that there's no longer a public hearing on these applications, does the town still want to maintain that requirement for a sign? It's a public courtesy to know what's going on, but it's certainly not a requirement. There's lots of changes that can happen to a neighborhood without signs being posted. So that's just food for thought. It will come up later. For the time being, I just want council to know that a sign has been put up, and it'll be up for the 6 weeks before council could potentially consider adoption. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I also did attend the public information gathering, and I think that the proponent has answered a lot of the questions that were concerns that were raised by the residents. And as Councillor Skipsey mentioned, they likely would have preferred 4 lots instead of the 6, or but I think given today's climate for building and trying to find smaller parcels and smaller properties, I think that this is a good compromise. I did want to also point out on the plan that the proponents have proposed 4 parking stalls on that Strata Road, which was also one of the concerns for the residents. So I think it's a good compromise to people's concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Vander. Councillor Young? Oh, Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the best that could reasonably be hoped for is you get a house on the road that everyone's going to see, and then on the side is smaller. But I just want to highlight too, we need to build more of these smaller homes, a fair bit more, honestly. Large single-family homes are the most expensive, and also too, because it's just there's more heating essentially for more rooms. There's actually an environmental impact too. So I think this is pretty good where it's landed. I'd also highlight too that just staff can clarify for me, when we do the section 219, like the siding and essentially the finishing touches aren't really required to be just, I know some folks might have looked at monochromatic renderings and said, every house is gonna be this pale green color, it's gonna be god awful. So just, obviously there can be some variation with that final touches on the home, I'm assuming. Just Mr. Sales may want to just clarify that. I know the mayor and I are both nodding, I think we know this, but just to be clear.
Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. The form and character covenants require substantial compliance, so there's still room to update minor elements like specific window locations or siding colors and things like that. Has to generally comply with the intent of the covenant.
Councillor Vander.
Thank you. Well, I would like to point out, as I have in many situations with proposals, that in terms of climate action, it may be wiser to not have a black roof on everything that's being built. So that might be something for the proponent to consider. It's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Sales, official community plan.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. The next item on the agenda today is the official community plan review, which is also a bylaw, and it has been under consideration by council for quite some time. We are at the stage now where we could potentially consider 3rd reading and adoption. So it has gone through 1st reading, 2nd reading, a public hearing, and here we are today. Just as a reminder for council and the public that this is a relatively compressed timeline because the province has specified a completion deadline of the end of the year. So with that as context, I'm going to briefly describe the types of changes that have been made. Less detail today than has been made in previous presentations. So if anyone is feeling like we're starting at pretty far down the line, well, that's very true. But you can review previous presentations that have been made. So just as a brief refresher, this official community plan review has focused on housing. It wasn't a comprehensive review of every part of the official community plan, and that really shaped both the way that we talked with the public, engaged them, what we asked them for, and it's also now impacting the way that we consider things like amendments to the plan as it currently exists in draft form. So We engaged the public early this year. On the basis of that engagement, we took it to council and asked for specific direction on what were described as council decision points. So key changes that could be made in the document, council gave us direction on those. So that was one category of changes. The second category of changes was that the OCP was restructured with the intention of making it clearer and more usable for the various groups that frequently refer to the official community plan. So that has been done. Some elements have been moved from one location in the document to the other. Some pieces have actually been moved outside of the official community plan. And then thirdly, just want to point out that where the town didn't have an opportunity to engage the public during this official community plan review, there hasn't been much effort made in updating those sections. And that's a really key consideration today, and it's likely to come up again in conversation, because as council or the public read the document, it's clear that some things could benefit by a little bit more refinement. I think that's very clear. However, all that old language that exists in the OCP, some of it dates back to 2018, some 2011, sometimes 1998. Policies in the OCP have evolved over many iterations of the OCP, and so if we were to make changes now without the basis of public consultation, we would essentially be ignoring the fact that those policies were put in place at that time with the benefit of public consultation. So just want to bring that up. So now, as we've received feedback based on this draft document, I just want to highlight that there's a few general areas where we've received that feedback and kind of categorized it. We have feedback that's been received that's within the scope of this official community plan review. That would be feedback on things like the overall structure, clarity, usability, or things that are related to housing. So we've had some really good constructive feedback from the public on those areas. Then we've also received feedback that wasn't related to the scope of this OCP review, but that doesn't mean that the feedback has been, discarded. It means that it's been put aside so that when the next official community plan review comes up and council has more time to consider a more fulsome review, then we can review those points again. And thirdly, there has been some feedback that should be referred to some other process. That could be the strategic planning process. It could be a review of the sustainability plan, tree protection bylaw, urban forest master plan, whatever that might be. If it's not directly related to the OCP, that doesn't mean it's lost. It means it might be considered in a future process. So with that, Mayor Westbrook, the recommendations before council today is that the OCP bylaw be read a third time as amended and subsequently adopted. The zoning amendment bylaw, which received those development permit area guidelines, be read a third time and subsequently adopted. If there are any questions, I'd be pleased to take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sales. Councillor Young.
I'd like to suggest a couple of friendly amendments in reference to letters that's been received and recent committee of the whole meeting and public consultation. In regards to Eagle Crest housing, I'd like it to be zoned as all small-scale residential because of what I've heard back from some of the local residents, and not the medium-scale residential zoning that we're proposing on some of the areas. When it comes to perhaps if there is multifamily residential or commercial or institutional development, it would be discussed on a case-to-case basis, not to totally rule it out, but have discussion before it goes ahead. I think public needs to have input on it. And in going through the OCP draft, on page 225, it says we protect the open spaces in perpetuity of our golf courses, and that includes Eagle Crest. So the comments I'm hearing are from some of the residents that have bought on that part of property of Eagle Crest that is facing the ones that are now have been amended to possibly have institutional development or multifamily development. So I would like that to be always discussed case by case, in all fairness. And again, on the OCP draft, it says the town to focus on medium density developments in the village neighborhood. So this medium density that we have zoned in a couple of the lots in the Eagle Crest community, they're not part of the village neighborhood. And on another page of the OCP draft, page 197, we say that complete, compact, and community land use, so development is compatible with existing neighborhoods. So again, I'm saying that we need to have only small-scale residential zoning for all of Eagle Crest.
So are you suggesting a motion? Could you read out the motion?
A motion to have all housing to be small-scale residential in Eagle Crest, but open for case-to-case study on proposals of multifamily or institutional or commercial.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Harrison? Okay, for debate. Go ahead and debate.
I'm just curious if this is the forum where we can do that, because we did the rezoning already for Eagle Crest.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is where we can actually redo a zoning for a particular set of properties. I actually agree with what Councillor Young's saying, because that was my position back when we did that rezoning. But I'm just curious if, just through the chair to staff, is that something we could actually do at the OCP stage, or would we have to then look at a rezoning for Eagle Crest as a separate course of action?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Harrison. The timing on this potential amendment would be quite awkward. You know, the zoning and OCP amendment to put these land designations in place were only adopted by council on October 22nd. So this isn't, an old policy that needs to be refreshed. Council just made this decision. So now having said that, if council did go a different direction with this OCP, then we would have to follow it up with a zoning amendment consideration in the new year to bring the zoning in compliance with the OCP. It's not unusual for the OCP to precede a zoning amendment, so it's not that it's impossible, but it certainly is awkward timing. Thank you.
Councillor Skipsey.
Yeah, I wouldn't be supporting this motion. I think that we've gone through the process, and when we decided to purchase Eagle Crest, we knew there were going to have to be some harder decisions. I think small-scale residential is not going to meet any of our housing priorities, especially in this sort of upscale neighborhood. So I won't be voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vander.
Yeah, I think also it needs to be kept in mind that we did agree that we would have special consultation with the community. So perhaps a lot of their concerns will be discussed at that time. They will have direct input into the design and the overall layout of different land uses. So I think that should help to for the public to feel more comfortable with these proposals. So I also don't support the motion.
Mr. Sales, we did make a commitment that we would engage the local community, the Resident Association and others, to make sure we have the support to proceed the way we're planning. Councillor Young.
It is unfortunate that some of these comments are from residents that are not part of the Eagle Crest Residents Association. And so they're bringing out their opinions that wasn't represented by the committee. Also, in reading the OCP draft, then it would make it a little hypocritical when we say that we're protecting the golf courses into perpetuity. So people that have bought, looking at the OCP, they thought the golf course was going to be facing them, and then now council is going to make amendments to say we can allow a 3-story building to be in front of them instead. And then there's 3 pages on the OCP draft that I would think that this amendment should be made because it doesn't agree with what is in the OCP draft.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Mr. Seals.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I think it's really important to remind council that the map has been updated. So when a member of council or the public refers to Eagle Crest Golf Course, it refers to that central area where the town intends to carry on golf activities. It does not include those areas that are now designated for housing. So there's not an internal conflict in terms of saying the town will protect Eagle Crest Golf Course because those are no longer designated as Eagle Crest Golf Course.
Any further comments? Mr. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so I won't be voting in favor of this amendment, but I do actually support the intent of it. I think, though, we should be doing that later on when we're actually looking at Eagle Crest lands. But I think there's a lot of things we haven't considered. For example, when I did the math, when we did the rezoning, there were supposed to be 393 units. Now, I know we're not going to get 393 units. That's just the mathematical maximum of the zoning. But it's almost all outside the urban containment boundary when we did that. Kind of made a bit of a dog's breakfast of our OCP going through that process. But here we are on the other side of that decision. I strongly disagree with it for several reasons. But I think the appropriate time to really get into the details of what are the financial implications of putting essentially, I'm guessing right now the realistic zoning would be 300 units. Well, the 2 East Village Towers is 72 units, so that's 4+ of East Village in Eagle Crest, plus an institutional building, similar maybe to Qualicum Manor or the Gardens, and then the surface parking. If underground parking costs between $50,000 to $100,000, if you have 100 units, ballpark $7.5 million cost, which is going to be taken away from revenue from land sales. So this is a future conversation, not really an OCP conversation, but it is a conversation we're definitely going to have. But I just want to sort of let Councillor Young know I support what she's trying to do. I just don't think this is the right time to do it. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Any further comments? Are you ready for the question?
No.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a second friendly amendment proposal.
Amendment to your motion?
No, this is a different one.
Okay, well, let's vote on the one that's on the floor.
Okay.
Are you ready for that question? Ms. Svensson, could you read it out, please?
Councillor Young moved and Councillor Harrison seconded that staff be directed to amend the official community plan to have all housing small scale in residential in Eagle Crest with multifamily, institutional, or commercial development to be considered on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? You're allowed, that's okay. Opposed? Motion fails. Now, you said you had a second one?
The second friendly amendment I'd like to make is regards to agricultural reserve land. We do state in this OCP draft that we will not take any land out of the agriculture reserve, but I would like to not have that so cut dry, but to say that we would consider some creative thinking if a proposal came up that they can put in some housing but still continue to grow. I would like that to be considered because it's not us that can take the land out of the agriculture reserve. It's just council being able to put the application on behalf of the developer into the Agriculture Commission to ask. So I would like to give that opportunity if something came up that was creative, that was agricultural land that was nearby to our village center, that it would be considered. Because in the past, we have taken Pheasant Glen out of the agriculture reserve land. So it isn't a taboo that we cannot do that.
Thank you. You're right. We did move about 50 acres out of the ALR for a tourist destination. There was at one time in the regional growth strategy a provision that land could be taken out of the ALR if it was for a tourist destination resort. And on that basis, council supported it. Plus, they would have to come into the town boundary and so on. Now, when different legislation came about, it's not as easy for us to control what happens on those lands, but anyway, that's what happened. And you're right, council can ask or make an application on behalf of the owners to take more land under the ALR. So we need to boil it down to a motion that makes that clear.
I'd also like to state that in previous meetings, a couple months back, I'd asked, what is the expected crop yield of agriculture reserve land?
Deal with it. Let's have the motion that you wanted something done with the ALR land.
Okay. Anyways, there isn't that much expected on a crop yield for agriculture reserve land that I Googled up. The motion I would like to put in is that Council will consider on a case-to-case basis as to agricultural land being possibly applied to be removed from the allocation by Council if we consider that it meets some of the needs that we require.
I think we can work with that. We can probably polish that, but I
Yeah,
think we get
polish it,
the intent. Is there a seconder for that? No seconder, motion fails. Back to the main motion on the OCP review, and we'll take them. Did we agree to do them all at once? Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure we all do, because on December 3rd, we heard from the public at the public hearing, and there was a lot of great input that we heard from residents. So my first thing would be the introduction, and I wondered, earlier, Director Sales made the point that a lot of the sections of the OCP have not been updated this time around, as we were focused on housing. And I wonder if it would be appropriate to make that statement right in the introduction somewhere, so that people are well aware that this 2025 amendment was mostly focused on housing. And I had said something like this: the 2025 OCP reflects public consultation on housing as per provincial requirements. The remainder of the document is essentially the 2018 OCP document, or something to that effect.
Mr. Sales, what do you think of that?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. The introduction does provide some context as to the focus for this OCP review. So if council feels it's important to clarify that many aspects of the OCP were essentially left untouched, that is language that we could insert in there. I think the challenge is we may need just a brief break to write that out, essentially, because we are at the stage of potentially advancing and adopting this bylaw very soon. Any motions need to be very specific so that there's no ambiguity about what's being changed. So if council supports this as an addition, I'd request a 5-minute recess just to clarify the wording.
5-minute recess. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young, all in favor? 5-minute recess to write the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey moved, and we'll wait for a seconder, that the Town of Qualicum Beach Official Community Plan Bylaw number 918-2025 be amended by inserting on page 4, bullet point 5, the 2025 Official Community Plan Review process reflects public consultation on housing as per provincial legislation. The majority of the OCP policies were not amended during this OCP review.
Councillor Vander, seconding. Discussion on that amendment. Councillor Harrison.
The only point for me is there's a lot of things we did not update. Is it, though, in staff's opinion, the majority of things we did not update?
Councillor, Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. By the volume of words alone, I would say yes, we did not update the majority.
Further discussion? It was moved and seconded. We're just voting on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carries unanimously. Now back to, yes, some more?
I have more, but I have good news, is that I've vetted most of them with staff before the meeting, so they should be okay. We heard quite a bit about Schedule 2.9, the Official Community Plan Consistency Workshop, and that was, I think that's on page 236 of this agenda. That there's a lot of questions around how it would be used. Is it that a majority of the items have to be consistent? Is it key items? Are there specific items and whatnot? So staff, I worked with staff, and the recommendation that we came up with was that the Town of Qualicum Beach Official Community Plan Bylaw number 918-2025 be amended by replacing all instances of the words OCP consistency worksheet with sample OCP consistency worksheet. And I would move that, if I could get a seconder.
Councillor Vander.
And in making it a sample, we could still, that gives us more time to work out what is it exactly that, how this is going to be used by council. The idea is to give council a tool to decide whether or not something is in line with the OCP, and I think it just needs a bit more refining. And so by making it a sample, I think that gives us more time. Thank you.
Mr. Seals.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I think it would be more accurate to describe it as a sample because each council may have a slightly different interpretation of how they would like to see the OCP consistency worksheet used. So describing it as a sample is certainly fine.
All right, so Ms. Svensson, did you get the motion?
Yes, that the Town of Qualicum Beach Official Community Plan Bylaw number 918-2025 be amended by replacing all instances of the words OCP consistency worksheet with sample OCP consistency worksheet.
And that was seconded?
Councillor Vander.
Councillor Vander, on discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, and I don't really agree with the idea of having a worksheet that binds future councils to whatever criteria we set out, because when it comes to whether something is OCP compliant, basically if there's a shred of the OCP that overlaps with the rezoning that a future council considers, they're fine legally. There's a court case in Prince George, I remember Lidstone and Company had a memorandum about where they were trying to build a healthcare facility in a rural area. There was nothing in rural zoning about healthcare. They went to courts, the neighbors won, fighting against the healthcare facility. And then they redid the zoning to include the word healthcare in their OCP as an OCP amendment. Neighbors fought it again, lost. So, you know, I think the idea of like really tying council's hands to the future, I'm not sure we could do that. So I'm fine with making it a sample too. I also too, like I'm deeply hesitant about myself being the person determining whether something is OCP compliant. I don't know if I have the requisite professional competency to do that, but that's a whole other conversation. But I think a lot of local governments will be struggling with this, so I'm sure UBCM is going to start looking at what is the proper direction for all municipalities, and we'll probably just follow suit with whatever UBCM says on that issue.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Harrison. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Was there more amendments? Go ahead.
I have 5, just so people know. So that we've done 2. The next one was on page 109 of the actual OCP, and that was around open space subdivision. And the last sentence talks about where the rural form and character, which as far as I'm concerned has never been defined, is preserved, and where the resulting land use significantly advances at least one of the key OCP goals. And I don't know, again, which ones are key and which ones aren't. So my recommendation is just to strike that sentence. But I know Director Sales said we'll talk about it today, so he might have a different opinion on that one. So thank you.
Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So there has been some discussion about the potential benefits of allowing subdivision in rural areas, entirely within council's discretion to consider it. If that were to be considered, it would be through a zoning amendment. So there's no scenario where subdivision occurs in those rural areas without first reducing the minimum parcel size. So regardless of how this policy is worded in the OCP, council will retain that authority. So just to be totally clear, if this policy changes today, council retains the authority. If the policy doesn't change today, council retains the authority. So whether or not council wants to spend the time refining this now is really likely not going to impact the overall impact of this clause. So now, having said that, if Councillor Skipsey's intention is to remove the phrase "and where the resulting land use significantly advances at least one of the key OCP goals," that certainly wouldn't compromise the intention of this clause. So if flagging that it only takes one OCP goal to make something acceptable, if that's how council is reading it, then we could remove that. It simply gives council more discretion to interpret that in a slightly different way. But once again, council had the discretion to start with. So I think our perspective would be that it's not going to help or hurt to take out that clause, but if council would like to do so, that's entirely within your discretion.
Thank you. So, Ms. Svensson, did we get it as a motion?
No, not yet.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
Okay, so I'm contemplating this on the fly here. So I'm thinking perhaps then instead of taking out the whole sentence or the section, and what about, and where the resulting land use significantly advances key OCP goals, and strike out the at least one, and then at least it's more than one, and I think it makes it a bit stronger wording.
Okay, Councillor Young seconding. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
So I won't be supporting this one just because the whole point of doing something different from the existing form is something like maybe a cluster of tiny homes or maybe something which has a mixed use that might actually be advantageous. And since I did that whole rant about the court case in Prince George, it still applies. I don't need to repeat myself. So to Mr. Sale's point, yes, we retain that authority no matter what. But I just think that if you leave it as the rural form and character is preserved, I think you're just creating a headache when someone wants to do something innovative on a rural property, where it's going to say, well, that's not what your OCP says. So you should be the same as what existing rural homes are, which are usually much larger with a lot of acreage around them. So no, I just don't support that because I think it's just going to create a headache for a future council.
Thank you. Very considerate. For more discussion? Councillor Skipsey.
Well, I just want to make sure that staff knows it's striking at least one of the, is the motion on the last sentence.
You got that, Ms. Svensson? Okay. On the motion, as Ms. Skipsey, Councillor Skipsey presented, and it was seconded, right?
No.
There's no seconder. Okay. Yeah, I thought Councillor Young seconded it, but that's okay. Yeah. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Harrison and Mayor Westbrook opposed. Any more?
Okay, so policy 4.6.9 on page 111 of the document. I would like to amend it by inserting, it talks about notwithstanding policy 4.6.8, commercial or land use adjacent to Rupert Road, and I would like to insert between Memorial Avenue and Qualicum Road. And that would be my amendment. And I would also like to, sorry, I would also like to delete the last part again where it refers to advancing one of the key OCP goals. Okay.
Can you read the one that we should vote on first?
Councillor Skipsey moved and Councillor Vander Valk seconded that amendment be made to the official community plan at 4.6.8 by inserting between Memorial Avenue and Qualicum Road.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
It's actually 4.6.9. It refers to 4.6.8 in that policy.
Okay. Further discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Go ahead.
The second part would be to delete the rest of the sentence after secured. and staff, their response was they didn't have any concerns with doing this.
Mr. Seals, what do you think?
Yes, thank you. So similar to the previous comment, it won't necessarily hurt and won't necessarily help the clause. Council will remain in charge of whether or not they considered something to be compatible with the form and character of the rural lands. So I don't think it's a necessary amendment, but it wouldn't undermine the intention of the clause.
And that was seconded by Councillor Vander. Further discussion. Councillor Vander.
I just would like clarification. Is it to strike that entirety, the sentence in its entirety from after secured, or is it one of the key? Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I just see the vote again? Who voted in opposed?
Councillor Harrison, Councillor Young, and Mayor Westbrook.
Thank you.
Councillor Skipsey.
Okay, I have one last one, and that was the input we received about housing and all of the discussion around low and moderate income. And so the motion would be that the Town of Qualicum Beach Community Plan Bylaw number 918-2025 be amended by inserting the following sentence in section 2.3.2 immediately before these priority housing groups, PHGR, affordability is a key consideration in housing policies and initiatives. Particular attention should be given to the financial challenges faced by households within the priority housing groups.
Thank you. And there's a seconder for that? Councillor Harrison. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. You're done? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
So just a couple of brief points. I'm not suggesting an amendment. Just one thing is on page 74 of the OCP. It refers to the Qualicum Beach Elementary School, formerly now Qualicum Commons, and it says, while retaining it for potential future school use. I'm just curious, is that what we really want to do? Because if we're going to be taking it as a community hub for the long term and potentially doing other redevelopment on the site, does that then preclude future school use? So I'm just, because I know we did that exercise in the previous term where we had a development for the entire site. Neither of them really left any room for a school. So I'm just not, just maybe through the chair to staff, is that sort of currently what the plan is for the town, that we want to have that option, or is that not really the plan for the town?
Mr. Seals.
Yes, thank you. I think this is hypothetical, but there are scenarios where the site could be modified without precluding the possibility of school use in the future. So the existing site and the amount of land on there is far more than would be required for an elementary school of that size. So in other words, there are opportunities to discuss, even if council was fully committed to retaining potential school use. So not something we need to iron down today, but I think that regardless of this policy, there's still a lot of opportunities to discuss.
Well, and also to Mr. Sales' point, I don't think realistically there's any capacity in the next several years to actually start developing the entire site. I just don't think that's a realistic possibility. The other one too, there's a few other comments that we got, which I don't think really require amendment or anything. Just a few things though that was interesting. One of the OCP steering committee members gave a very detailed written submission as well recently, which I appreciate. And just to his point about some of the climate targets for the town, one of the interesting stats, so VIHA has, it's called the Local Health Area for Oceanside, and it has 30 pages worth of healthcare data, and it is a fascinating document. I suggest you read it in your own time. I'm obviously not going to go over everything with that. One number that does stick out, though, is that we have a very low percentage of people who bike or walk to work. It's only 8.3% of our workers, and about 2/3 of our workers in the census, there actually is a section on this near the bottom of the census, work in other communities. So it's mostly Nanaimo and Parksville. So one of the things we can start looking at is when we're looking at our emissions reduction, EV sales are significantly slowing right now in Canada. BC is one of the largest adopters of that, which is good. It's BC, Quebec, and Ontario, I think, are the primary adopters. But there is a slowdown more broadly. And there is probably going to be a discussion, too, about the climate targets. Oh, and the last point for Mr. Hopwood, I think we mentioned this before, but just for the public's benefit, our interim sustainability plan has these really aggressive emissions targets for reduction of emissions of our town as a whole. Those were basically legislated by the province post-Paris Climate Accord, if I recall correctly, where the province basically said, thou shalt, every local government is going to have this level of emissions reduction. It's very hard for a smaller community, and I would love to see a very deep dive scientific analysis of what actually creates the greatest bang for your buck. I have a hunch it's 4-story all-wood buildings in walking distance to grocery stores and bus stops, but I could be totally wrong. Anyways, I don't really have any other amendments or anything. I don't think there's anything really worthy of an amendment at this point, so I'll just let everyone else go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Vander Valk.
Thank you. Just had some concerns about, and throughout the OCP, there's reference made to high-quality housing in a number of spots, which may be deemed to imply expensive housing. So by high quality, I'm not sure what exactly is being said there. I think it might be better if we just said housing rather than qualifying it with high-quality housing. So I would like to make the amendment or make the motion that the Town of Qualicum Beach Official Community Plan Bylaw number 918, 2025 be amended by deleting the words high quality in reference to housing and simply stating housing so that it's clear we're concerned with all forms of housing.
Mr. Seals, what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you. Through the chair, if I could ask a question of clarity. So is the proposal to replace all instances of high-quality housing with housing throughout the document?
Yes. Yes.
That's your amendment. Is this a seconder for that? Councillor Harrison, discussion? Councillor Harrison.
Just to alleviate some fears too, the baseline cost of construction is so high that it is going to be high-quality housing if it's not getting subsidized. So I do agree with Councillor Vander Valk that it's such a subjective term. High quality according to whom? According to what metric? According to what building materials and everything else? I think folks are very familiar with, there's a sort of a visual language in Qualicum Beach, so it's reasonable to say that this is sort of where we've arrived, but I do think it's a bit problematic if someone was going to come here and say, well, what does high-quality housing mean? I think you get 4 different answers from 4 different citizens, so no, I think it's reasonable to just make it clear, and I think we have enough language on other targets that it's reasonable to do this.
Thank you. So that's been moved and seconded. Councillor Young.
I disagree. I believe high quality is important for whether it's low-cost housing or expensive housing. We always look for the best bang for your buck. So I would think high quality should stand.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Further discussion? Ready for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Young opposed. Motion carried. Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Vander Valk?
I did have a number of questions that aren't related to the housing aspect in the OCP that I just want to make sure that staff is aware of them because they will be hopefully reviewed at a later time. So I don't know, shall I just give these to Director Sale and my list and ask that they be recorded for another time, probably, because there's quite a number of them, and I don't think we want to be going through them all at this time. So I just would like to be able to give him the list at another.
I appreciate that.
After the
Councillor
meeting.
Sales, Mr. Sales, we talked about that before.
Yes, that's correct. So comments, especially those received by council that we're not able to address in this OCP review, get logged in a file so that in the next OCP review, we can pull those out to see whether council wants to make some changes.
Thank you. Anything else? No? Councillor Young.
I'm just curious, when is the next OCP review?
Thank you. So the next scheduled OCP review would conclude in 2030, very long way away, but we have added it to the discussion for the strategic planning session next year. So next fall, when council is considering their work term, we will be bringing it up as a possible project to incorporate into their work term. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Any? Carried. Thank you. That was this for third time as amended. And then the Community Official Meeting Plan Bylaw 918, 2025 is adopted. Councillor, Ms. Svensson.
Sorry, I didn't get the mover and seconder for, we were talking about Councillor Young's list, but I didn't get anybody moving and seconding third reading as amended. Sorry. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Bylaw number 918, 2025, to be read, adopted. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey, discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. Carried unanimously. And then the zoning bylaw. Mr. Sales, do you need to refer anything to that?
No, thank you. So the changes to the zoning bylaw were to take the development permit area guidelines that were excluded from the OCP, so now they need to go somewhere, and the zoning bylaw is the appropriate place. So it's a fairly simple amendment to the zoning. Thank you.
Sorry, that's number 3 on the screen. Councillor Vander, Councillor Skipsey, discussion. Councillor Harrison.
It was raised by staff at an earlier point. There was just one of the DP development permit areas where there was just a clerical error on staff's part. They corrected it, as far as I'm aware, and as far as I'm aware, everything's on the up and up now. But just in case folks are looking at older versions of the agenda and they're curious why one or two of the things are different, there was one thing which was just an honest mistake.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. So that was moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? If carried. And then the same want to be adopted. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? If any? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Committee and liaison reports. I know we have a pretty full agenda, so the only thing I'm going to share, and I go to quite a few meetings, but the one thing that I was very happy about, and I think most people in the community will be as well, yesterday I met with the regional district board and also with the regional hospital district board. And we had been saving your money about 100 million to build a new patient tower at the Nanaimo Hospital. But what we really need sooner than that is a catheterization lab. So yesterday, the board made a motion. Now therefore be resolved that the board of the Nanaimo Regional Hospital District directs that for the 26, 50 million be inserted into the NRGH hospital capital plan under the line item catheterization lab. So that, I think, shows the province. Sorry. So that showed the province that we're serious. We have the money. We're willing to pay this whole thing. But it's an advance payment on the total amount that's required for the patient tower, which will be around $1 billion. So we'd have to collect from all of us in the Nanaimo Regional District 400 million to get that project going, but there is no sign anytime soon that will happen. But we think the only catheterization lab that's really any good is south of the Mellahad, and we need one here. Now, Councillor Harrison. Pardon? Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. My glasses fog up, so I got to see. Okay, so I have a notice of motion. You can see it there. And is it shown? Yeah, there it is. So that's my motion, if I have a seconder. Councillor Skipsey, discussion. Councillor Vander, Councillor Harrison. You're good? Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
So my only concern here is that the quality of the rail line right now is really poor. So in my first term, I remember I went to Parcel Recycling Depot. The Qualicum Nation was doing a bottle drive, and Jesse Rickham was very pleased that he got a member of Qualicum Beach Council to show up. He made sure to put that on social media. But I remember watching some of the little kids walk over to the rail line, start picking up the spikes that had been put in the ground and pulling them out with their hands. And it's not the best thing for kids to be playing with. Just hope everyone has their tetanus shots. So that my only concern is that I think of things like Galloping Goose, which is very well utilized further south in the island. Is this the best way to utilize that space? I know Thomas Bevan, who's the new CEO of Island Corridor Foundation, is a lovely person, really great to work with from my modest interactions with him, really great guy. But I worry that if we commit to this path, while there's an ongoing conversation at the RDN about future uses for the site, we might be sort of getting ahead of what might be the best way to get funding, grant funding for this. Just because I know this is something, Gord Johns about 2 years ago did a presentation on this, and he was talking about potential funding streams. So that's just my only concern is that, are we predetermining, should it be just a trail overall, and you dig out the rail line, which is very poor condition and is now no longer connected. Also, too, I think the recent fires have taken out some of the trestle bridges which go to Port Alberni, and the First Nation land claim has taken the connection north of Nanaimo. So we're basically orphaned right now as a rail line. So that's just my only concern. I don't know if staff have any idea on that, or maybe if the mayor, because you were actually meeting with Mr. Bevan.
Sure. We did meet with Thomas Bevan, and he is a wonderful guy to work with. He has a planning experience. And so, as you know, along Harlech, we want to create more parking. So this would help us have a path from basically the museum trail to go and hook up to where we have a new crossing on Memorial. So people can walk safely along the railway, not on the railway. And what I thought was interesting, they made a presentation, Thomas made a presentation to the Nanaimo City Council for a 5-kilometer trail. On the budget, in the Nanaimo City budget, it was identified as a $5 million project. They did it for $200,000. So he said, literally, the jaws of the members of council in the Nanaimo City Council meeting literally dropped. So I think there are ways for us to make it more convenient. And I always thought that would be good to have a path from the community trail, the museum trail, to hook up to the Dollymount Trail. But we need a safe crossing. And so this is all part of that. And the other discussion we had, and you saw probably the communication from Mr. Farnworth, who I happened to bump into at one of the events, and I asked about the stop signs. Because he started off his presentation with saying, we have no money. Maybe a light switch. Remember that he said that? So I said, well, we're not looking for any money. We just want you to turn the stop sign the other way, like 90 degrees. So if there's any vehicle on the railway, which from time to time happens for maintenance or otherwise, they would have to stop. And we would make sure there's good sidelines. With a commitment that if the train ever came back, we would make those crossings whole, with lights, bells, whistles, literally. So we would have to commit to that. And Mr. Sales, you were part of the conversation. Is there any movement on, I know you've been very busy with this OCP, but is there any movement on working with the Island Corridor Foundation with these stop signs?
Yes, thank you. So on the stop sign issue, I think they have a bit more work they need to consider to see whether that's possible. In terms of immediate town projects, we are looking to do intersection improvements adjacent to Memorial Avenue and Railway and First Avenue, that intersection there. And they do need to support those changes. And also the proposed Cenotaph location is on the railway, on a lease that we have from the railway, but it still requires them to work together. So we do have a meeting set up with the ICF representative. I believe it's this afternoon. So these are all pieces in motion. The actual stop sign reconfiguration, it does require a bit more analysis, but at this point, the important piece is that we are working together with ICF, and the relationship is very good. And the potential change to recognize that rails with trails is something the town is supportive of. Was important to Mr. Bevan in our previous conversation. So not to put words in your mouth, but my understanding when you described it previously was that you wanted to make sure that our policy language supported what he thought was very important. And so what you're describing there does support what Mr. Bevan is looking for and would kind of foster that positive relationship.
Yes, because I live close to the crossing on Arbutus, and I see very good citizens, very honest, law-abiding citizens go right through that stop sign because they know there is no train. So you're confusing people, you're annoying people, so we said turn the stop sign 90 degrees, we're all happy. So he thought about that, and he said, well, we'll have to talk about what would happen if the train never came back, so we're working on that. Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Just one point while we're talking about all things trains. So the UBCM Resolution Committee gave us a very clear process on how to get the rail line declared basically inert. There's no more traffic on it. And it was contacting South Vancouver Island Rail, and then I think there's a second party we had to contact as well. And instead we sent a letter to Minister Farnsworth saying, hey, can you tell us what to do? So I'm just curious, when the Resolutions Committee from UBCM just said, contact these two people, they can confirm that the railway is no longer active, because there's less than three trains a day, which there's 0 for several years, so much less than 3. And then we can just remove the stop signs altogether and not worry about how they're facing. So I'm just curious why we haven't done that as far as I'm aware. Can staff maybe provide some context on that?
Thank you. So the correspondence was sent as per council direction. When there's a formal update to be provided, we'll bring that forward. But the correspondence has been sent, Your Worship. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that there are already quite a few trails adjacent, parallel to the tracks, and so I think where we can connect these, I think that's really the piece that's missing. So I think to work with the Island Corridor Foundation is a great opportunity. And then I just wanted to mention too, part of the conversation was if the stop signs are removed, that the town may want to look at our speed limits and reducing speed limits, because that is one way of slowing traffic. So just comment that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Svensson, we got the motion for the discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
I was just opposed, that's all.
Thank you. You're next.
Right, sorry. That's why you were saying my name.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a bunch of things. I was trying to do basically like a giant quarterly update, and just too many things the past little while. So to give a really brief version of the past few months, VIA had a State of the Island Summit. They have, if you go on their website, there's this thing called the Economic Dashboard. So if you want information about the Vancouver Island economy writ large, you can go on there. It has a lot of information, which I'm not going to go over at all, but there's a ton of different information. The economist who does the annual state of how the island is doing basically says we're facing hard times moving forward economically. Productivity growth is anemic, like it is across all of Canada, and a lot of sectors are really struggling, particularly forestry. VIHA, also in terms of sources of information, they have, so if you type in LHA Oceanside, that's where VIHA has their update in 2025 of all information. There's some indicators, the last time they updated it was like 5 years ago, so it's great to see new information. There were some outliers we had before, which were now normal again. One of them was potential years of life lost because of suicide, so I'm glad that's below average now. Life expectancy too, this is for most of the folks in the room. For men is 79.8 and for women is 86.5. So just in terms of, there was a recent study, I think it was from Angus Reid, which said about 90% of baby boomers want to age in place, and less than 1 in 5 have actually done any long-term planning. So those are sort of the numbers of how long you're going to live, roughly, on average. Maybe add an extra year or two as a just in case. We do have some other statistics where we're worse than average. One of them that I just want to highlight, because we had that recent event at KSS, is for children who are low income, we're about 25% worse than the VIHA average. So that's something I think a lot of people don't associate with Oceanside, but we do have a lot of young kids who are actually struggling economically. Drug deaths were spiking in 2020, where we were actually worse than BC and VIHA. Now they're basically about at a little bit over half. But we do have opioid deaths in the area. Just a couple of questions for staff. One was, because I wasn't able to do the council update in the last meeting, my apologies. We got a few emails about a sidewalk display, which someone put a lot of work into it, but it was sort of blocking the sidewalk. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if we have a specific policy on that per se, but maybe just something so that when folks do one of those displays, this was about a month and a half ago, I think, when someone does one of those displays, maybe we can reach out to them and tell them how to sort of comply with the town's policies. Because I really respect the effort small business owners doing when they try to do that, but just so that they know.
Ms. Varela?
Thank you. Those are matters of bylaw enforcement, Your Worship. So if it presents a hazard on the sidewalk or any of those things, often some great ideas do intrude into that public space in a way that undermines accessibility or safety. So it is a matter of bylaw enforcement. Thank you.
Thanks. And just because, yeah, we saw during the pandemic, we started getting some, well, especially French press stories, just the one example that really leaps to mind. And I think it actually adds a lot to the downtown. So hopefully we can look at, maybe if the business owner wants to reach out, and we can look at if there's a policy we need to create for that. Other things, I don't know if we want to do anything with this, but both the mayor and I, on different petitions, had some concerns where we reiterate the language that the petition is submitted with, and then that gets on the agenda. And I don't know if we need to look at, just having petition regarding airport, petition regarding Eagle Crest, petition regarding whatever as the language. But I haven't really submitted anything to staff, so I'm not going to blindside them with, let's do this from now on this way. But just flagging that as maybe a conversation next year, because hopefully this is our last regular meeting of the year. And then anything else? Let's see, I had a couple little notes here from some other things, but that's actually came up earlier. Last thing then, I guess, would be just so the public's aware, we've had some emails asking questions about anything to do in terms of shelter space or emergency weather response. So I'm just curious, is there anything we're at with that can be publicly shared?
Ms. Varela?
Thank you. We will be cooperating with Parksville and the RDN this year, and the RDN will be putting out communications on pieces on that in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks. And last thing is that I had a great time sitting beside Graham Beard, who my dad spent a lot of time on the museum board, so Mr. Beard is something of a legend at the Qualicum Beach Museum. So it was great getting getting to be able to spend some time with him for the first time. So really grateful for that. And with that, I'll move on. Thank you.
Would you like to make your motion?
Sorry, motion, St. Stephen's, right. Okay. So the motion, when I was talking to staff, I said dollar value X. They have $10,000 in here. The one thing I just wanted to add is that I don't know how we do this, but I do think we should have a fair conversation with the farmers market and the curling club and other folks who use that parking a lot of, we'll put in the majority of the money. That's fine. It's public use. That's everything. But maybe we should have a conversation about that. And I see Ms. Varela raising her hand. Sorry.
Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this notice of motion actually separates it from the matter of the parking lot, because that is tangled up with other parking lots that we also have, that we have a formula that we provide for that. This is a one-time funding opportunity that's being suggested, which would be funded from Council's Strategic Initiative Reserve under the line item volunteerism. So you have $10,000 in that budget. We did talk to you. You haven't had a spend against that line item for the last 2 years. We did recommend reducing that to $5,000, but the $10,000 in its entirety is available this year for council to do a one-time funding source, and then again you could consider that next year, or we could look at a policy, any of those solutions. So it really did separate it from the parking lot issue, which was more convoluted. This really is recognition of the valuable programs that church provides related to volunteerism and community good. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. But I agree with Councillor Harrison that I know the farmers market heavily relies on that parking, curling club events, other community hall events. So I think it's reasonable for us to our liaison to approach the farmers market and ask them to contribute towards it, because we won't be doing 10,000 next year, from what I understand. So they can make up the difference. Thank you for the motion.
Yeah. And sorry, thanks for staff clarifying that, because forgive me, there's been a lot on this agenda, and I was a little bit confused for a second with the lack of sleep. But I do want to highlight too. Yesterday we had the AGM for Kiwanis. and they gave me the address on Village Way, and the Google Maps said, oh, go to the church. And so there was a SOS group there last night with a lot of young kids and families. So yeah, I do think this is actually reasonable, as staff points out, because we have the budget sitting around, essentially. But I do agree with the mayor, too. We need to start talking about what the future is going to be.
And Councillor Young seconded that. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. So my report is in the agenda for last month, and I just wanted to mention that Councillors Harrison, Vander, Valk, and myself participated in the Biosphere Awareness Day. It was the first one that was held at KSS, and we asked students to let us know which sustainable development goals were the most important to them. So we had about 180 students participate, and their choices, number 1 was good health and well-being. Number 2 was zero hunger and clean water and sanitation. And then no poverty and climate action were the top 5. So I think it was really good feedback and input to receive from those students. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skipsey. Councillor Vander Valk.
Thank you. My report to council is also included in the agenda. And as Councillor Skipsey mentioned, we had a good response to the student survey, which we asked students to put a dot on our dot-mocracy. So it was quite a bit of fun and very informative. There were a couple of other events that I did attend, not as liaison, but I won't list all of those. I do have a motion that I would like to put forward regarding Bill M216. So for the public, I don't know if you've got the motion there. Okay. Bill M216, the Professional Reliance Act, is a private member's bill that states it provides for the streamlining of development projects and reduction of administrative costs and the approval of development projects by local governments, and requires that a local government must accept as meeting permit or bylaw requirements any submission certified by a PGA professional acting within their required scope of practice, unless A, the submission is incomplete, or B, the complaint in respect of the submission, a complaint in respect of the submission has been made to the superintendent. So there have been many concerns raised about this bill from local government elected officials and staff, UBCM, the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, the MIABC, the Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia, and members of the public. The town of Qualicum Beach should be engaged in the discussions with the provincial government about these concerns. And to that end, I move that whereas the province of British Columbia, through the Select Standing Committee on private bills and private members' bills, is currently seeking public and local government input on Bill M216, Professional Reliance Act, and whereas the committee has provided an online submission process open until 3 p.m. Pacific on January 6th for stakeholders to review background materials and respond to a series of questions regarding the bill, that the town of Qualicum Beach submit formal feedback through the province's online consultation portal, requesting that Bill M216 be tabled until the province has fully engaged with local governments to ensure that local autonomy is recognized and respected in advancing measures meant to improve permitting efficiency.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Skipsey, discussion. Councillor Harrison.
What I do recognize what I think Mr. Anderson is trying to do, what I think he's trying to do. But it's one of the cases, sort of like our short-term rental legislation, where something that's fixing a problem in larger communities has unintended consequences in smaller communities. So in a larger community, say the city of Vancouver, you're building a 20-story tower, you're going to have a panel of different planners from the city of Vancouver reviewing each aspect of your building because they specialize in different areas. And then getting everyone in the same room takes forever. You'll individually deal with each planner who will say, well, you have to change this, and then you make the change. And then the next planner comes like, oh, you have to undo the change you just made because that's not what we do here. And it's really laborious, it's time consuming. And knowing a lot of nonprofit developers, it can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in essentially what are called carrying costs because nonprofit development still has a mortgage at the end of the day. So long delays do add costs, but this is taking a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel. I do agree we need to improve our processes. I just don't think giving a carte blanche for architect to say this is the building and it's perfect, here we go. I do have some concerns with that. And I think what we're trying to do here, I could nitpick on the language, but I don't see the point of it really. For me, the only concern I have is that, local autonomy is respected. Technically, paramountcy always applies. But I do think they need to do a lot of consultation with local governments about this, about the real-world implications, because I don't even know all the implications of this. And just going through UBCM has put out, it could be very, very harmful in the long run if there's any liability issues. That could be a real challenge for local governments. So I respect what he's trying to do, but I just think we should maybe pump the brakes a bit and make sure we've crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's before we pass legislation that really would radically change how local government development approvals are done.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Young.
Do we have a copy to review and for submission?
Thank you.
Planning to submit.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So the province has requested feedback through an online form where they list questions and you just enter it in. So because you start that submission process, we haven't actually started it and documented the questions. What we would be doing if council does advance this motion is providing this motion specifically, but also participating and kind of summarizing the intention of council's concerns.
Thank you. I think, I support this motion. I probably would have been a little stronger and asked them to defeat it or refuse it, but I will support this. I think that, as mentioned, they're trying to solve something that isn't necessarily a problem here in Qualicum Beach. The concern is that housing projects are sitting waiting for municipal staff to recheck the work that's been completed, and I don't see that this is happening in our community. And I think, as mentioned, some of the bigger communities, City of Vancouver, Surrey, whatnot, yeah, maybe that's a problem there, but they're taking a broad brush to solve a problem that doesn't exist in many, many communities. So I support us giving that feedback, and I think that they need to work more with local governments on some of these issues rather than just thou shall. Thank you.
Well, if recent actions and activities in history tells us anything, the province doesn't really care what we think. But Bill 44 and others, they just, like a czar, they push it through and we have to cooperate. That's why today with the OCP, we have to finish that by the end of this year. So it's very unusual for us to be regimented like that, but that's the new reality. Anyone else wants to speak to this? Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Councillor Vanderhoek, that was it? Good, thank you. Councillor Young.
I also have a report that's in the agenda, but I'd also like to mention that yesterday evening I attended the Flowerstone Society board meeting, and they're excited to be working with one of the developers on Beach and First for their development and being able to have a second Flowerstone clinic in that location if the development goes through. And I just want to thank you, the town, for the support of Flower Stone Society in that now they have extended hours, they have more nurse practitioners. And when it comes to medical care, I want to thank Mayor Westbrook. He has spearheaded the meetings with Dr. Connor and with Dr. Kelly Hatfield in recruiting more doctors. And we now have it's come out on the media release that we will have a new clinic called Primrose Clinic that will be opening hopefully in the fall of next year. So that's great news. And also I attended a little holiday get-together social with Stephanie Higginson last night. And I just wanted to say thank you to our MLA. She's always receptive to any of our asks, and she also follows through. So that's good news.
Thank you for your report, Dr. Councillor Young. Next is Corporate Services. Ms. Swenson.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So we have a special event sponsorship application from St. Andrew's Lodge Historical and Cultural Society, and there's a resolution on the screen before Council to approve Saturday Twilight Concert Series, July 4th, July 25th, August 8th, and August 22nd.
Councillor Vandervalk's making a motion. Councillor Skipsey seconding. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Youth Appreciation.
Thank you. Next, we have the Youth Appreciation Lunch. So planning our 2026 schedule, we've looked at when Youth Appreciation Week is, which is the week of May 1st to 7th, and staff are recommending that we work with the Qualicum Secondary School to organize and promote the 2026 Youth Appreciation Lunch to be held on Thursday, May 7th in Glassford Square during their lunch break.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey. You moved that? Thank you. And Councillor Harris seconding. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Winter holiday, town hall closure. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So that's just for, that Council approved that closure. Councillor Young, Councillor Harrison. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Please take some time away and rest up.
Yeah. Thank you. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. And then the late item, Ms. Swenson or Ms. Varela?
Take that, Your Worship. So this is provided as an update for council and for the benefit of the public. It is not intended as a response to the delegation's request, as that would be out of step with practice. So what we will do is I'll just go over, and this was provided to the neighbors of Pond Drive with their concerns to the heritage forest. I just wanted to provide, prior to the delegation today, sort of that baseline of knowledge of what steps have been taken in response to concerns. I also want to show a correct map for the area of inspection, so we'll go to that next, and then maybe some possible next steps. So if we, there's the area of inspection. This is currently receiving a level 2 inspection right now. The president of the Brown Property Preservation Society and our arborist are out doing a level 2 assessment in the area of concern. And that builds on a lot of work that's gone on really since July. So if we go back to the steps taken by staff, thank you so much. Hard to read that little tiny font. But in July 24th, we did have the arborist respond to a maple tree limb failure on a property behind Palm Drive and scheduled its removal for August 11th. I think one of the things that's important for council and the public to understand is that it does take time when working with contractors as well. So we did see the third-party contractor find a fungal fruiting body on a Douglas fir tree while working on the maple tree with the limb failure, and that was in August. We then did further assessment by both the third-party contractor and the town's arborist, who found fungal fruiting on 4 Douglas fir trees, with one of them having a severe lean and an area of reduced trunk diameter. So then in September, we had our arborist complete a level 1 inspection for the area behind Palm Drive due to ongoing public concerns, with a second inspection that was undertaken on October 10th. At that time, it was determined by the town's arborist that a more detailed inspection was not required. There were no obvious high-risk trees in that area. And we have to note that that level 1 inspection did exclude the Douglas firs discussed above because they'd already been identified for a level 3 inspection. We saw September 30th, the leaning Douglas fir tree was cut to the height of a wildlife stump, and a level 3 assessment for the 3 remaining Douglas fir trees was organized to investigate further. And we were advised at that time that the availability for that arborist, the third-party arborist, would be the level 3 assessment being done in late October, early November. And so on November 4th, we actually saw the level 3 inspection occur. And on November 10th, the level 3 report was provided to the town. We also heard concerns from the neighbors about fire smart and risk of fire in that area. So we did have the fire chief and the assistant fire chief of prevention walk the heritage forest behind Palm Drive to assess ladder fuels and surface vegetation. Ladder fuels had been minimized and ground fuel had been mitigated. It should also be noted that wildfire mitigation work had occurred in the forest adjacent to Palm Drive in the past. November 20th, I did advise the representative for the Palm Drive residents that the fire department is also available to conduct fire smart assessments of their individual homes, as well as a neighborhood assessment for the area. So those concerned neighbors simply have to reach out to the fire department to organize that. I also advised that the remaining Douglas fir trees were going to be cut, and that actually occurred on December 2nd. We saw those trees cut. December 5th, we had the town arborist out with the president of the Brown Property Preservation Society to discuss and begin the level 2 assessment. Again, this is an extensive undertaking, and so we're going to inspect that entire area that I showed you, and that's going to be completed sometime this week, ideally before December 12th. Not sure if we're going to make that, but that is the goal. So to summarize, I think we've demonstrated the actions to date for council's understanding. We've seen the area map of inspection, so that commitment to common knowledge, and then some possible next steps. So January will likely see the Heritage Forest Management Plan, the Heritage Forest Bylaws, and their interplay with the covenant for the Heritage Forest brought before council. So that'll likely be January. What we could do in February or March is we could get a subsequent update to council on the state of the heritage forest, and the president of the Brown Property Preservation Society has kindly offered his services for that. And then what we could do, maybe if the neighborhood was willing, is we could have sort of a neighborhood meeting maybe in March with the neighbors to review the Heritage Forest Management Plan. And again, that wouldn't be for the purposes of debate, but again, that commitment for building common understanding. That might assist the neighbors as well. And then again, requests for any fire smart assessment can be made through the fire department. So for council's benefit, your worship, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about that, Mr. Harrison?
So I'm just looking at the timeline, and I'm curious about the usual amount of time it takes when you have a tree with a severe lean to be dealt with, because it looks like it was August 11th or 12th, we identified there's a tree that has fungal infection, it's leaning severely, has reduced trunk diameter. So obviously that's a problem, needs to be addressed. And then it's addressed on September 30th, which is almost 2 months later. So I'm just wondering, what's the usual timeline when we identify a tree that is a problem to that being addressed? Because I know we had a lot going on this year. It's not been an easy year, but I'm just curious about that timeline.
Thank you. Councillor, Ms. Varela.
Thank you again. So we rely on qualified professionals for this. I wouldn't want to second guess them in the meeting. I'm clearly not qualified to be a tree assessor or to develop those timelines. What I do look at is the communication trail with the public. I have a significant binder upstairs. My staff who are qualified manage the risk. They can consult with the Heritage Forest. They liaise with third-party contractors. So in looking at those actions, if council had any further concerns or questions, they could forward those to me and I would get an answer from staff. I'm not comfortable second-guessing staff in this process. Thank you.
I just suggested that maybe, I'm not saying that staff did anything wrong necessarily, but I think when you have about a 2-month gap when a tree has fallen on a house and then there's an identified tree that is a problem as well, we might want to look at just what the process is and then just try to make sure that maybe that if there's anything we need to tighten up and everyone agrees. But to your, Ms. Farrell's point too, she did mention that's coming up in the next little bit, so that might be something we want to discuss when we're discussing all the covenants and the agreements that are in place, because we can't go on the wrong side of that. But at the same time, maybe we could have a good faith conversation of, in this specific set of circumstances, can we maybe act a little bit more rapidly in the future?
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Ms. Varela.
Again, Your Worship, we have a policy and qualified staff that we rely on. So if council wants, any individual councillor wants to take that offside, I could get those questions. I simply can't speak to them here. When I look at these processes, again, it was the original event that started this on July was a maple tree limb failure. It wasn't a tree coming down, it was a limb failure, and that wouldn't have been found in an inspection. I have talked with the president of the Brown Property Preservation Society about that, which is why I think it's important that we get out to the neighborhood and talk about that heritage forest management plan and what options actually are available to the neighbors if they do have branches of concern. But again, that one particular event wouldn't have been caught with a level 1, 2, or 3 assessment. So very unfortunate event.
Thank you. I think you made the point about trying to shorten the time. Appreciate your comments, Ms. Varela. And I don't think that there's a motion required for this. So, Councillor Young, do you have any other items? No. Okay. So, Ms. Swenson, there was something else happening.
That's it, Your Worship. I will turn it over through you to Fire Department for a verbal update on the 2025 Fire Department public outreach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So while we've got this PowerPoint set up here, just introduction, increasing public outreach became a goal in 2022 with the objectives of increasing recruit numbers for us and making it more convenient for residents to interact with the fire department. And we'll highlight the 2025 public outreach activities in this. There we go. So recruitment. Recruitment is a challenge for most paid on-call fire departments, and Qualicum Beach is no different. Since increasing public outreach, our department has increased our membership from 28 members up to 37, and this year is the first time that our locker room is full. This year, the department set up a recruitment booth at 12 events. That included the farmers markets, beach days, our open house, and family days. And here's some pictures of our crews. And public education has always been a priority for the fire department, especially with youth, with Fire Prevention Week and a boot camp that I'll go over on the next slide. We started visiting elementary schools in 2002 for Fire Prevention Week, and that's a national event every October. And one area to note that has increased with public education since 2022 are fire station tours. For the community groups, early childhood education programs, and school-age children, as they're becoming more aware that we do this, we are being approached by communities or community groups, and some have noted that they come from out of town to visit our fire station because they've heard good things from their colleagues for tours that we've done. With our fire camp, we started that in 2004. 16 high school students are brought into the fire station for a week, and they live at the fire station and train with us. And when we get call-outs in the middle of the night, they get woken up and they get to watch us leave. They get to help us clean up. They get to live the life of a firefighter. With all the different skills we need and all the incidents and different types that we attend, we can fill every day with hands-on learning, pretty much dawn to dusk. We cover fire suppression. Students get to flow fire hoses. We do search and rescue, firefighter survival techniques, a little water rescue at the pool, motor vehicle incidents. The students get to use the jaws of life, tear open cars, which isn't something that many people get to do in their life. High angle rescue, we have a training tower where their students can rappel off, work on their fear of heights. And we also have an aerial tower, which you can see bottom left there with the students making the 25. We'll raise that up. They get to climb all the way to the top. And again, something that they can work on is a fear of heights. The students get to push themselves past their comfort zones as much as they want, and it's a safe, supportive environment. And honestly, it's truly rewarding watching the growth that occurs with these students in the short week. And it's also amazing to see the friendships that start day one and to see how tight-knit the groups are at the very end of the week. We also bring in other emergency services to speak with the students to open their world of career possibilities. So to name a few, RCMP, paramedics, Coast Guard, and the local fire departments also help out. Many of the students have moved on to emergency services careers, including myself, and I was a part of the 2011 fire camp cohort. So for FireSmart, FireSmart was officially rolled out to the community this spring with attendance at 17 public events, and 16 individual FireSmart home assessments were completed by request. Kendor and Dolly's Home Hardware have joined the FireSmart Plant Partners program as well. So FireSmart approved plants will get tagged with a FireSmart identifier for those looking to start landscaping intentionally around their home. It's our goal through regular attendance at public events and by increasing the number of neighborhoods that we can target with door-to-door literature that requests for FireSmart assessments will continue to increase in future years. And with fire and life safety inspections, staff positions within the fire department complete these inspections, which are a provincial requirement under the Fire Safety Act. And fire inspections are completed on all commercial buildings and residential buildings that are larger than a fourplex. And we also regularly inspect buildings that are under construction as well, under that same lab. And to date, in 2025, we've done over 400 fire and life safety inspections. For public events, we took part in 10 community events in 2025. And these included an open house that we hosted at the fire station that drew over 300 guests of all ages. It was a pretty good turnout. Youth Appreciation Day here in front of Town Hall. Halloween, where our fire trucks went around Qualicum Beach. We met families, we handed out candy. And other events that we attended included 3 school activities, family days, beach days, our Fill the Boots for Food weekend, and Moonlight Madness. And to end this, I don't have a slide for it, but I'd like to mention it. Another way that we've worked on becoming more visible and accessible to the public is through our online branding. So our website is keybefirerescue.com, and Facebook and Instagram handles are both Key Be Fire Rescue, the same name all around. And it's an easy way for those interested to follow us. Follow us on social media. We'll give you some cool pictures of the fire department to look at and fire safety tips. And the website is an easy way for the citizens to find information about the fire department. Anyone interested in relevant resources like our insurance benefits, because we are Superior Tender Shuttle certified. You can book a FireSmart assessment through our website, learn about our people, learn about our equipment, and of course, you can apply to join the team. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions to the chief? Thank you for your presentation. And I didn't realize that you were in a fire camp about 14 years ago, and here you are. So it was a good program. Thank you. Next is the facilities review. Mr. Sales?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Next item on the agenda is the Operations Workplace Modernization Needs Assessment. Staff are requesting authorization to proceed with a request for proposals to identify a consultant to complete the work. Just for a brief bit of background, the town currently operates its 2 primary operations divisions, Public Works and Parks, out of separate facilities located at different sites. Many of the buildings on the sites are aging, undersized, or at the end of their serviceable lifespan. The town continues to experience evolving operational standards and demands, including fleet electrification, increasing regulatory requirements, and broader expectations regarding workplace safety, environmental sustainability, and efficient service delivery. To support long-term service delivery, health and safety compliance, and modernization objectives, a systematic assessment of the town's operational space and facility needs is required. So this is essentially the first step in potentially upgrading our operations facilities, either on-site or at a new site the first step is to bring in a third-party professional to really help us understand what we need. What do our operations staff need in terms of physical space and operational workflows? And then that would be the basis to do further work, including maybe planning of a site and, you know, doing the design and so on and so forth. So we've talked about this a few times in the past in terms of where such a facility should be located, but this is a more methodical step forward in terms of, before even discussing a site, let's figure out what the town needs. So with council's authorization, we would like to issue a request for proposals. Council would be reviewing the results of that RFP process, so we would report back on budget and the general nature of the proposals in a subsequent meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Just moving the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Young. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, this is desperately needed. The discussion of where it goes, whole other conversation. But the facilities we have, some of them, I remember in the pandemic, the roof fell off the garage, which we're using as a repair bay, and it was, what, a $70,000 bill, I think it was, to reattach the roof. The buildings really are, some of them are really at the end of their life cycle, so we need to get some of these buildings upgraded, however we do that in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
Yeah. Thank you for this report. And just wanted to make the comment that when I was at university studying business, we always looked at considering pessimistic, realistic, and optimistic scenarios. And I wondered whether something like this could be incorporated, or if that's the intent of phasing at different times. Thank you.
Mr. Seals.
Yes, thank you. So this report would give the town kind of a first step and a little bit more understanding in terms of what we need in the first place. And I think that information would then be the basis of establishing those scenarios, because at a future date, council will need to determine how to proceed, whether it's upgrading facilities on site or elsewhere. And we'd be looking at those, you know, optimistic or pessimistic scenarios on the basis of this information. So, you know, obviously the optimistic scenario is that there's some maybe low-cost renovation that just gets us by. We don't know, and I think this professional assessment would be the first step in deciding and helping to give council information they need to make that decision.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you. Excuse me. And next is the development variance permit for 532 Memorial Avenue. Mr. Seals.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I do have a few slides. While they're being pulled up, I'll introduce that this is a development permit application and a development variance permit application for a property at 532 Memorial Avenue. Now, it's important to note that development variance permits require two considerations by council. So the first time it comes to council, council decides whether or not to proceed with notification, so that at a future meeting, you can consider whether or not to issue the variance. Development permits only require one consideration by council. So for the purpose of today's meeting, we have provided background on both of those processes. However, council is only being asked to make a decision on the development variance permit, so that if you do move forward in January, you would be in a position to make a decision on both applications. So I'll describe the site, the current proposal, and some of the changes that have been made perhaps since the last time council saw it. So this is a commercial site at the intersection of Memorial Avenue and Crescent on one side, Hoy Lake on the upper side. The current proposal is to construct a multi-residential building adjacent to Hoy Lake Road with 3 smaller building components. Stepping down as you go down Memorial Avenue, there is underground parking under this building and an amenity space for the residents of this development located kind of between the two functional components of the site. Move forward. Okay, so the memo and the plans attached do show the changes that have been made since this application was initially received. They don't read so well on the screen up here, so I'll just describe them visually. The first time council saw this application, it was taller and relatively boxy, I guess you could say, in terms of not a tremendous amount of articulation on the extents of the building. It didn't have as much visual interest from the perspective of staff. And so council, through the process of reviewing it in the committee of the whole meeting, the applicant first made changes to articulate the building. It came down a bit, and a rooftop terrace was retained at that time. However, that was subsequently reduced further. So as you go from here to here to here, the building has gotten smaller. It's also been pushed slightly back from Hoy Lake Road, which has two effects. One is to just make it farther away, but because of the slope of the land, when you push it back, it's also going down. So if you look at the current height of the building as proposed in relation to the road, it's actually not much more than 8.5 meters. And interestingly, the maximum height on the adjacent residential areas is 11 meters. So we're in a bit of a unique situation because the maximum height in this commercial area is an artifact from zoning many years ago, which established an 8.5 meter maximum height, whereas all the residences around have 11 meters. And we also have a unique situation where, because of the slope of the land, the height of the roadway is considerably higher than where the building's actually located. So this slide here shows the height of the building in the previous iteration in the black outline, and then the current height of the building in this in the perspective rendering. So you see it's been stepped down considerably on the sides, which would reduce the visual impact. This is perspective rendering showing the overall massing and character of those lower units, which were the 3 modules, which are also multi-residential, but in a very different building format. So this slide, which is in your package and is more readable in the package than it is on the screen, just shows some of the changes that have been made in response to comments from the Advisory Planning Commission. So the Advisory Planning Commission recognized that there were opportunities to articulate the building, to break up some of the massing so that it didn't read as one large building. So the response from the architect was that there's essentially a break point that's been introduced midway through the building. And there's a lot of glazing that's been added to that section, so both on the Hoy Lake side and also on the north side. So you can essentially look through this glass section. The building has also been pushed back on this side. So this section here is more or less where it was before. This section here has been pushed back 12 feet, which significantly changes the perceived massing from the street. The other change that was in response to the Advisory Planning Commission was the Advisory Planning Commission recommended a more prominent presence at the corner of Hoy Lake Road and Memorial Avenue, so a significant landscape feature was added there. There was some discussion at the APC meeting about actually, having maybe some more building here, but that wasn't considered to be the most sensitive approach to the corner. So landscaping was the approach proposed by the applicant. So as noted earlier, the decision on the development permit is not one for today. So the recommendation is simply to direct staff to fulfill statutory notifications so that at a future meeting, likely the mid-January meeting, the development variance permit and development permit could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Vander.
Thank you. Well, I have quite a few comments. I do appreciate the changes that have been made by the proponents. I think that the things are going in the right direction. However, I do still have some concerns. And I think I need to talk about those even though they're not directly related to the development variance permit. But I would note that on the very last page of this agenda, I think, or of this proposal, on page 480, It outlines a development permit area, C6 Memorial Avenue, what the guidelines are, and there is a lot of discussion about this site as a gateway to the uptown commercial area, and says in order to promote the charm of Qualicum Beach, buildings shall avoid massive building components in favor of smaller village scale character and design. And that the second point is that because of the sloping topography, height variances will be entertained, particularly if the portion of a building that is subject of the variance assists in enhancing the village character and architectural interest of the building. So I think still that the project, the whole site and the way that the site is laid out does not really meet the aspirations of the town in terms of it being a gateway to the town. So I would like to refer back to on page 375. We did on June 18th, 2025, there was a resolution that had many points in it, that being, well, there are many points there, and the resolution was that it should go to the APC for review, but 2 points were specifically pointed out: that the height not exceed 3 stories plus the elevator and the small rooftop amenity space on the floor above, and a traffic study be conducted to evaluate the impacts at the it should read, I believe, of the safety of the intersection at Hoy Lake Road East and Memorial Avenue, and to explore alternative access onto the site from mid-block on Memorial Avenue. So those were our requests, and it did go to the APC, and the APC did make a request itself that the Advisory Planning Commission recommends to Council that the Advisory Planning Commission generally approves of the direction the application has taken after the previous recommendations have been addressed, and that the application be brought back before the Advisory Planning Commission in the interest of producing the best possible design. So I'd like to integrate both what the Planning Commission, or Advisory Planning Commission, has suggested and the points that were raised by Council on June 18th, 2025. And would like to make a motion that as requested by the APC, that the application be referred back before the APC in the interest of producing the best possible design, and that their considerations include consideration of a gateway perspective, height, building, green building features, length and massing of the Hoy Lake Road East building, and as per the June 18th, 2025 Council resolution, that the arbutus, consideration of the arbutus tree being preserved be given, and that a traffic study has been done, but that a traffic study explores alternative access onto the site from mid-block on Memorial. So there are a couple of things that weren't done.
Yeah, I think this
Sorry.
motion is getting to be pretty long. So
Okay, that's it.
that's tough.
Okay.
And, pardon?
If I could get that, I didn't get all of that. Sorry.
Okay, would you?
Do you
and
have
you
it
have
written
in
out?
writing.
Usually we get the motions in advance.
I do have it in writing. It's very scribbly, but I can give it to you.
Well, present it to
Sure.
Ms. Wenson, see if she can make out what you mean.
Okay.
Perella.
Your worship, I believe the director also had his hand up.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook.
I would like a 5-minute recess, if that's okay. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, all in favor? We're having a five minutes in this council chamber. Usually ends up being more than that, but we'll try and keep it short. And by that time, the motion should be clear and on the screen. Thank you. Councillor Vander Valk's motion, can that be put on the screen?
Your worship, I could read it out while they get it ready to load if you wish.
Sure. Go ahead. Thank you.
That council directs staff to refer the application back to the Advisory Planning Commission in the interest of producing the best possible design, and that their consideration include a gateway perspective, height, length and massing of the Hoy Lake Road East building, and further that as per the June 18th, 2025 council resolution, the arbutus tree be considered for preservation and explore alternative access onto the site from mid-block on Memorial Avenue.
Thank you. That says it all?
Yes.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Skipsey. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Okay, so I think this is kind of crazy and entirely peremptory. We're doing statutory notification for a variance, right?
No,
that was the staff recommendation, was the statutory notification.
Yeah, we're not going there.
Right? Well, I wouldn't predetermine the outcome.
Okay. But this is
We haven't voted yet.
This is the motion that we need to deal with.
Yeah, I know, but the general process is, are we doing statutory notification or not? You have to do statutory notification before you discuss the variance permit, right? So we're just discussing, do you even do statutory notification? So the point I've raised before about Charlie Brown and a football, every time multifamily comes across as council, is pretty apt. They've taken a story off the building. They've done everything and more that you could realistically do. And this whole idea of a gateway perspective, could you please provide, could Councillor Vander Valk, just for my clarity, I don't know what those words mean. Could you please provide 3 examples of a gateway perspective for a building?
A gateway perspective for a building. I don't know if I can give you an example, but
Then why is it a resolution?
But I can. Please don't interrupt me.
Please don't interrupt, Councillor
Thank
Harrison.
you.
That's not fair.
My feeling is that when you're coming into town you're going around the roundabout, which is a beautiful structure, and you're coming through the golf course, and then you're coming up the hill, and all of a sudden there's 3 quite huge buildings right at the base of this project, and there's nothing really that reflects the character of the town. There's nothing really that reflects welcome to the town. There's no sense of now you're coming into the town of Qualicum Beach, which is a beautiful town. So I can't give you an example. Maybe it's never been done before. I don't know. I couldn't give you an example of the roundabout because we were the ones that came up with the beautiful roundabout. So I can't give you an example, but I can give you an idea of what we would, I think, would like to see in terms of welcoming people to the town and saying this is Qualicum Beach.
Okay.
So, no, I'm not done. So I think it's in the OCP multiple times that residents really value and want to preserve the small town character of Qualicum Beach. And the proposal as it sits does not, I don't feel, does not welcome people into the town. And I'm not saying I don't think the projects should happen. I just think that there are better alternatives that could be explored. And I would hope that the developers want the same thing for the town as the residents want for the town. So I think the developers want to have a good project that people like, and are comfortable with, and that's also what the residents want. So that's my...
Thank you. I'll let Councillor Young speak and come back to you. Go ahead.
I'm not in support of this motion. I feel that the project, I appreciate all the changes that's been made. They've been attentive to all of our asks. I feel that it is done by acclaimed professional architects and landscapers, so I appreciate that. And so I feel that when we have experience and professional architects and landscapers that are doing this beautiful project, that certainly is something that would be qualified as a gateway experience. And I also note that the OCP, the Advisory Planning Committee has generally said that this is acceptable. They have lowered their heights. They have met all the minimum setbacks. They even have doubled the parking stalls, which is uncommon. So I just think it adheres to the character of our town that is progressing in modern times, but still, the height's reduced, the masking is fixed so that there's that middle glass area that I thought was, wow, that's nice, and doesn't make for a block of build there. And I'm very happy with this project, and I'd like it to be going forward with what staff recommended.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I just want to point out that if the gateway perspective is that they need to indicate that they're welcoming people, should just put up a sign, welcome to Qualicum Beach, and be done with it. Like, there's no actual factual information as to what a gateway perspective is. And we talked about how we inherited a bunch of artifacts from earlier iterations of the OCP. This is one of them. This is why we're even discussing the height as a variance, because it was a zoning that was set back in, I believe, in the 1990s, possibly, around then. So it's been several decades. Beyond that, I just think it's patently absurd that we're saying we're doing what people want when we haven't even done the statutory notification to ask people what they want. Maybe they're perfectly fine with it. I know a lot of the people actually on Hoylake because my aunt used to live on Hoylake, and there's family members from her partner all up and down the road. We had a family get-together at Thanksgiving. Interestingly, they are split on the arbutus tree. Some people love it, some people hate it. There you go. So I just think we're being totally unreasonable to not do statutory notification first. If we get feedback from the public that there's outstanding things that they want to have addressed, we can talk about it then. But to do this conversation before we've even asked the public if they're okay with the new design, I just think that's a cart and horse issue, on top of the fact that it's just sending a message to the developer that nothing is ever going to be good enough. So why bother? I think you're going to lose a good project where they've really, I'm surprised they cut the entire floor down, and they've done that. I don't see how they're going to economize any further. They're not going to build 5 cottages. So either we get going with this process and try to get one multifamily project done before the next election, or we're just welcoming the province to come in here and tell us how to do zoning and development like they have in multiple other communities like Oak Bay, because that's what's coming if we continue to build very, very little. Just look at our building reports for the number of units we're building relative to the housing needs report, right? It's 1/10 of what we're supposed to be building. So this is about as good as you're going to get. I really have a hard time rejecting this and saying, let's go back to the APC, have a bunch of indistinct language which we can't even define, and say, let's add that as architectural details. If you're going to be precise about this is what exactly you want as an architectural detail, be very specific. This is what we need for that. But just to say, here's some verbiage based on the OCP that was written probably 30 years ago from zoning that's 30 years old, and figure it out. Well, there was a book I was reading, Fareed Zakari, on revolutions, and he has a segment on the Industrial Revolution. And there's a Whig politician by the name of Macaulay. He says, if you reform, if you wish to preserve. And I do think we need to add some honest-to-God multifamily in this community, because there are a lot of older seniors who want to downsize. There's an overwhelming wait list from the East Village for the 2-bedroom units. I think it was over low 3 digits of locals who want to downsize. It's a huge pent-up demand. So I don't know where we're going with this. It just feels like Charlie Brown with a football, and Lucy's pulling the ball away every single time. This is the 4th iteration, I think, in our term for this project. Is it 3rd or 4th? Just to share to staff, how many iterations have we seen for this project so far? For the various APCs and submissions?
Through the chair, so there's been 3 major revisions. I can't count minor revisions at this time. It would take a little bit of work.
So I just move we lay this on the table and instead adopt the staff recommendation.
Thank you for my opportunity, my first opportunity to speak to this matter. And I would like to say a couple of things in response to the points that have been raised. So one is Councillor Young's point about the APC and that they had supported the general direction, which is true, but they also requested that it come back to them so that they can be as the best possible outcome. And I would support that. And I think we just have to look to the Pheasant Glen example where we saw multiple iterations of what their clubhouse and lodge could look like. And we worked through that. And I think in the end, we got a very good product. I think it's going to be quite a destination golf resort. So I think, yes, sometimes it's frustrating and putting in the time and being asked to do more things is not ideal. But I think in the end, we get to a better place. And I think that's what we've done here in Qualicum Beach over the years, is we haven't just accepted everything that's come to us. We've said, no, we like our small town character. We like the charm. We'd like avoid massive building components in favor of smaller village scale character and design. So, and I think, Councillor Harrison made the point we should go and ask people. Well, we didn't even have to ask people because we got inundated with the correspondence from people in the neighborhood upset about the proposal. And the third point I want to make is that, yes, we have seen 3 iterations, but it's changed between the APC and council. So I think this is the second one that council has seen because it changed between going to council and the APC and then from the APC to council. So anyways, I think there's other things that I would talk about, and I'm not sure if this is the time, but in our OCP newly adopted, we talk all about green buildings and promoting, and I see a lot of concrete in this building, and that is, a high embodied emission that I don't know if it's meant to be wood frame but all of the buildings have an enormous amount of concrete, which isn't going to help us mitigate climate change. And I just think that we owe it to our community to send it back. Maybe we can do the notification in the meantime. I don't know, but I think that I will support this motion to let the APC have one more look. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I'm not proposing that we turn down this proposal at all. I'm just saying that I think we can look at some things that council has requested the proponents look at previously. So if we want to have both this motion and the motion to set the wheels going for the variance permit, then that's another thing that we could do. I don't think it has to be one or the other at this point.
Procedurally. Mr. Sales?
Yeah.
Thank you. So we did have a brief discussion about this during the break. So Councillor Vander Valk's resolution is to refer it to the Advisory Planning Commission. That could happen, and the referral could be initiated. The two, it's not mutually exclusive. So the APC meeting could happen between now and the January 20th, 22nd, 21st council meeting.
Okay. Well, I think that sounds reasonable that we can do both. Councillor Harrison.
The problem with that is one of the two processes is going to be done fundamentally in bad faith, right? So either you're going to do the statutory notification and the building that's going to the APC doesn't change whatsoever and the APC meeting is just a formality, or the statutory notification of this is the building is going to radically change after the APC, in which case the statutory notification is a formality. So which of the two is it? You really have to pick a lane. Which of the two do you want to do? If you want to go to the APC, go to the APC and give them time to make any changes that you think. Otherwise, do the statutory notification. My view is take the win. They've changed so much from their initial proposals. This is not the first time or second time we've seen it. This is the third time we've seen it. There's been other iterations as well. And the Pheasant Glen proposal was only changed once, right? So the total number of changes in Pheasant Glen was, they showed us the initial thing, that giant wooden wall in the middle. We said, could you please address that? They addressed it, done. This is now, I honestly think this is the fourth time the building's been changed, but I think it's come to council on 3 separate occasions. I think that's more than enough. It's been over a year worth of process of ping-ponging back and forth. And then in terms of the OCP and concern about the OCP, where was that concern with Eagle Crest? Everything in Eagle Crest is a violation of the OCP. So you can't say you rigorously adhere to the OCP for this building, and then the OCP is just a general guideline, but we need to make the money for Eagle Crest, right? So which is it? Is it the OCP is always adhered to? Well, we've blown by that with over 300 units in Eagle Crest. So I don't think that's a credible argument anymore for this council. I think it's really picking and choosing based on, well, based on ideology, really. But again, I come back to this resolution that just has no clarity as to what's actually expected. How can they faithfully execute on that when we don't even know what we're asking for? That's why I think we should lay this on the table, do the statutory notification. If the neighbors are up in arms about this version, which is radically different from other versions, then we have a conversation. But we don't know that. We have no clue what the public reaction is going to be because we haven't started that process.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Vander.
Yeah, I disagree that on a couple of points. I disagree that just because the province has said you should build more housing and you need to build this many units, that we have to do that and sacrifice the quality of what is being built in the town. So I don't think we should do that. And same thing with the developers. If they had looked at all the concerns that we had initially and looked into them, then that would have been a different thing. But they're making the changes based on the same sort of basic idea. And I just don't think it's fair to say we're taking too long or we've had too many iterations. I don't think it matters how many iterations it takes. It does matter that we have a project that is viable for the developer, is viable for the town, and is viable for the neighbors that are affected by this. And I think that we need to take the time to do that, to make sure that we have that. And I don't think that, well, certainly in terms of the traffic study, we did ask that the traffic study has been done, but it did not look at the alternative entering mid-block from Memorial, which could change the effect on the neighborhood in terms of a ramp going right by somebody's house. So there are a lot of things that we've asked for, that we've mentioned, that we've asked the developer to look at, we've asked the APC to look at, and I don't think that at this point we should just say, well, because it's taking a long time, we should just go ahead with it. I think we need to be thorough.
Thank you. So, Councillor Harrison, you want to lay this on the table?
Just to make one last point, when we were doing the Eagle Crest consultation, we hired a group of people to look at economic viability, basically determine what we should zone to get a price, a monetary value we want, right? And so we did that process. The numbers are held in camera, and I'm not obviously going to divulge them now. But twice Mark Holland said in the public information meetings, the profit for a developer is in the 4th floor. The first 3 floors basically don't make a lot of money these days with contemporary construction costs. It's the 4th floor where you make your money. This is, honestly, this is 3 stories. So when we're talking about economic viability, I don't think we're really taking that into consideration. I do think that they've gotten above and beyond for so many things that, bluntly speaking, I think we've got a great project here. So I just moved to lay this on the table and to do the statutory notification as per the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
I just had one quick correction. It is 4 stories, not 3 stories.
Sorry, when someone's moved, you're raising your hand to second it. So were you seconding? Thank you.
So the motion is to lay this on the table, which allows us then to consider another motion, which would be notification. So I'm going to ask the question. Was it seconded? Did we lay this on the table?
I was looking for a seconder.
No second. I'm sorry, the motion fails. So then this is the motion that's being discussed. Are you ready for the question? Just one more thing. Sure.
Just one more thing, just as a point for the public to look at. If you look at the original resolution for the, what was it, a big, beautiful arbustre, I challenge you to read that in your head without hearing Donald Trump. I think these sort of resolutions are just, honestly, it's kind of nuts to see how much we're asking for. They've done over a year worth of back and forth, and there is a cost of carrying cost. This came up with Kiwanis, so it comes up nonprofit developers too. The money you borrow, there is interest you're paying while we sit around here and palaver and go back and forth and go to this committee and that committee and back and forth all over again. There are financial costs that accrue. At a certain point, you're going to reach a point where it's no longer viable and folks just walk away. This is a council that's repeatedly rejected duplexes for not being in line with village character. So, I really think that we have a bit of a problematic track record. If the province had introduced a red legislation, we might still be rejecting duplexes. But I would point out to Councillor Vandervalk's point, why do we have to do what the province says? Because if you don't do what the province says, you get put on a list of communities that are not building enough, then the province appoints an advisor who will make recommendations to change your development process altogether. Again, reform if you wish to preserve, is the line from Macaulay, where he was advocating for more people should be able to vote in England. If you don't build enough housing, the province will come in and they will tell us how to do our development process. And I have a hunch that the members of council would prefer that much less than this proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey and Councillor Vandervalk.
Well, I just want to clarify that it's not over a year that Councillor Harrison keeps referring to, but it started the process on January 8th with a committee of the whole, and that was just to get council's initial response. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervalk.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that my ideas may differ from yours, but to call them crazy ideas, I take exception to that. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
I think the term was nutty, but that's equally offensive. So I think you need to withdraw that.
Sure, I'll say patently unreasonable instead.
Okay. So I'm in favor of doing this, but then also put out the notification. So they're both going out and we'll find out what people think of it. So on this question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. And I move that we...
Sorry.
Pardon? It carried? Yeah. No, did I?
Yeah.
There's no way. Did I? Well, I got time for a coffee or something. Anyway, so that carries, and now the motion that's in our package about notification. Could I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison, discussion, all in favor? All motion carried. Are we okay with that?
I was just going to say, I still think this is the wrong process. I still think it's setting people up to be disappointed one way or the other.
I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work. Councillors, Ms. Sales explained it to me, and I thought this is good. Ms. Varela.
Your Worship, could we have a motion to go past 3 hours, please?
Huh. Okay. Pardon?
We have a motion on the floor.
Let's vote on the motion on the floor.
Okay.
All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Now a motion to go beyond 3 hours. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vandervalk, Councillor Harrison. All in favor? We are approved to carry on. This could be a long day. Okay, so Mr. Sales, WAAM.
Thank you. So this is a verbal update. I will keep it brief because we just exceeded 3 hours. So the Ways to Achieve Attainable Market Housing project is one that was intended to follow on the coattails of the official community plan review to give some clarity in terms of the types of housing that are viable in the community and look at some creative solutions. So we are anticipating that public consultation will really begin in earnest in February of next year. So the intended completion date is likely to be April. That's the current target. The consultants are currently working on a housing opportunities report, which was the first stage in the project. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's just a verbal update. I don't think we need to do anything with that. There's no motion required to proceed. Councillor?
So, okay, we understand it's sort of ongoing. For the verbal update, is there any information we'll be provided with, or is it just, here we are, we're carrying on?
Yes, thank you. So for the purpose of today's meeting, it's just an update mostly on the timeline. I think people are likely to be wanting to know at what point will the public be engaged in the Ways to Achieve Attainable Market Housing project. So that's going to be February, and so we wanted to make sure that that was provided in advance. We're going to be doing communications as well, but the purpose of having it on the agenda as a verbal update was to make sure council is aware and that members of the gallery are aware.
So that's just for information. And the next item, we have Fern Road East, Town Initiative.
Yes, thank you. So the title of this memo was a housekeeping zoning amendment, and unfortunately the agenda doesn't reflect that. But there was 2 errors that were made inadvertently when zoning bylaw number 900 was put into place, and we would like to correct those. The first is that the property at 172 Fern Road was inadvertently downzoned because of a mapping error, so that needs to be corrected. They are intending to sell the property, and it's much harder to sell the property when the wrong zoning is in place. So we are looking to correct that as early as possible. The second is that, and this has come up multiple times at the council table, that the previous zoning bylaw had a requirement that the side yard setbacks in the R1 zone, they could go down to 1.5 meters on either side, but they needed to add up to 4.5 meters, and that it does conflict with the provincial site standards. So we are looking to correct both of those through this zoning amendment. The first step, given the new kind of legislative framework, is for council to determine whether this is compliant with the OCP, because that sets the steps in the future. Staff do consider this is compliant with the OCP, so this would be there would be no public hearing for this. Thank you.
So there is a recommendation. Councillor Harrison?
Just moving the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. And I think now we're at the motion to close. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, discussion? All in favor? We are closed. Thanks, everybody left.